All right, let's do this. Ready for another deep dive? This time, we're tackling personal growth.
Yeah, should be interesting.
I know, right? You sent over a ton of stuff, articles, research, even some personal notes you had. Looks like we're covering everything from like mindfulness to leadership to even,
Conflict resolution.
yes, conflict resolution. Buckle up, everybody.
It is quite the mix. And I think, one thing that really jumps out at me is just how important self-awareness is. Like it's really the foundation for all these other areas we're going to talk about.
Okay, yeah. Self-awareness, I mean, it's one of those buzzwords you hear everywhere.
Yeah.
But to be honest, sometimes it feels kind of vague. So what does it actually look like in practice, and
Yeah.
why is it so important for personal growth?
So think of it this way. You wouldn't start a road trip without knowing where you want to go.
Right.
Self-awareness is kind of like having that internal GPS for your life. It's, understanding your values, your strengths, what makes you tick, even those pesky weaknesses we all have.
Yeah.
And once you have that clarity, you can start making choices that are actually aligned with who you are, instead of just reacting to whatever life throws at you.
Okay, that makes sense. So less about going with the flow and more about choosing a direction. But how do we actually get that self-awareness?
Right.
You mentioned values. Is that the main thing?
Values are definitely a big part of it, but it also goes deeper than that. It's about, understanding your motivations, your triggers, those patterns of thinking and behaving that might be holding you back. And that's where mindfulness comes in. And I know people hear mindfulness and they think sitting on a cushion and chanting, but it's really about bringing that awareness to your everyday life, to your everyday experiences.
Yeah. Yeah, I've tried some of those meditation apps,
Sure.
and I honestly always end up feeling more stressed trying to clear my mind.
Yeah, you're not alone. A lot of people find those apps kind of overwhelming.
Okay, good. So it's not just me.
No, not just you. One thing you could try is incorporating mindfulness into like your daily routine.
Yeah.
Instead of scrolling through your phone while you're eating lunch, try actually savoring each bite, paying attention to the flavors and the textures. Or when you're feeling stressed, take a few deep breaths and just notice the sensations of your breath, coming in and going out. It's about finding those little pockets of awareness throughout your day.
Okay. I love how practical and doable those sound. All right, so we're building self-awareness through mindfulness, and where does communication fit into all of this? I mean, that's a whole other massive topic.
Communication is huge. And you're right, it deserves its own deep dive. But think about it this way. Self-awareness is like the foundation, and communication is how you express that awareness to the world. It's, becoming more intentional with your words and actions, understanding how they impact others, and ultimately building stronger, more authentic relationships.
Right. Because, I mean, communication is key, like we always hear.
Right, exactly.
But we've all been in those situations where communication goes totally wrong, right?
Oh, yeah.
Misunderstandings, hurt feelings, all that. So how do we avoid, like, those big communication pitfalls?
One of the biggest mistakes that I see people make is focusing just on what they're trying to say and not actually listening to the other person. So we get so caught up in our own heads, our own agendas, that we miss these really crucial cues. And so the antidote to that is active listening.
Active listening. I'm picturing someone nodding enthusiastically and saying, I hear you. But it's got to be more than that.
It is more than that. It's about truly being present in the conversation.
Okay.
Putting aside your own thoughts and your judgments and just genuinely trying to understand the other person's perspective. So it's asking clarifying questions, reflecting back what you hear, even paying attention to their body language.
That sounds like it takes a lot of effort.
It does.
Especially when we're so used to just sort of passively listening.
Right.
But I can see how it would make communication way more effective.
Absolutely, yeah. And it can prevent those frustrating conversations where you feel like you're talking to a brick wall.
Yeah.
Because when you actively listen, you're showing that you respect their perspective.
Yeah.
Even if you don't agree with it. And that creates a much more open and collaborative space.
Collaboration. That's a good segue to our next topic, actually assertiveness.
Yeah.
Because let's face it, sometimes we got to stand up for ourselves even when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, assertiveness is often misunderstood.
Yeah.
People think it's being aggressive or pushy. But it's actually about finding that balance between passivity and aggression. It's about communicating your needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully, while also honoring the needs of others.
Okay. So knowing your worth, advocating for yourself, but not steamrolling everyone else.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's a skill that can be incredibly empowering,
Right.
both personally and professionally. You know, it allows you to set healthy boundaries, have difficult conversations confidently, and build relationships that are based on mutual respect.
Mutual respect.
Hmm.
Speaking of difficult conversations, let's talk about conflict.
Okay.
Because it's something we all face. I mean, whether it's at work, in our relationships, or even just within ourselves.
Right. Conflict is inevitable.
Yeah.
But how we approach it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
And I think one of the most important things is to remember that conflict isn't about, like, winning or losing.
Right.
It's about finding a solution that works for everyone involved.
Yeah. Easier said than done, right? Especially when emotions are running high. One of the sources you sent actually talked about the importance of separating the problem from the person.
Right.
What's that all about?
That's such a powerful idea.
Yeah.
It's so easy to, like, in the heat of the moment, start taking things personally.
Oh.
And we see the other person as the enemy, right? Rather than focusing on what the actual issue is. But if we can just step back and remember that, you know, we're actually on the same team, even if we have different points of view, it becomes much easier to find a resolution.
So instead of saying, you're wrong, you might say, I understand where you're coming from, but I have a different perspective.
Exactly. And that little shift in language can make a world of difference.
Yeah.
You know, it de-escalates the situation, fosters empathy, and creates a more collaborative environment.
It's like taking the sting out of it
Exactly.
and focusing on the solution.
Right.
Okay. And sometimes that solution involves compromise, right?
Of course.
Like realizing that you might not get everything you want, but finding some sort of middle ground that addresses everyone's needs.
Exactly. And sometimes that means, you know, letting go of some of the things that you want and focusing on the things that you both agree on. That's a really helpful strategy, to focus on those shared interests rather than the positions. You know, so for example, say you and a coworker are disagreeing about how to do a project.
Okay, yeah.
Instead of, like, getting stuck in my way versus your way, try to figure out, like, what are your shared goals for this project?
Okay, so we're both on the same team. We both want this project to succeed, even if we have different ideas of how to get there.
Right.
Then what?
Then you can start brainstorming.
Yeah.
You know, how can we come up with solutions that address those shared interests? It might involve some, like, creative problem solving, but the key is to keep that big picture in mind.
It's like remembering you're working towards a shared goal, even when you have those disagreements along the way.
Exactly. And that's where resilience comes in, the ability to, you know, bounce back from setbacks and adapt to change and just keep moving forward.
Ah, resilience. Yeah, that's a big one. But it's not just about, like, you know, gritting your teeth and pushing through, is it?
No. Resilience isn't about denying our emotions or pretending everything's fine.
Yeah.
It's about acknowledging the challenges, allowing ourselves to feel those emotions that come up, and then finding the strength to keep going.
So it's about that inner strength,
Yes.
that ability to pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and keep going even when things get tough.
And you know, one thing that can really boost resilience is reframing challenges as opportunities for growth.
Reframing. Oh, that's another word that gets thrown around a lot.
It does.
In the personal growth world. So what does that look like in real life? Can you give us an example?
Imagine, like, an entrepreneur whose business venture fails.
Okay.
It would be so easy to just wallow in self-pity and give up on their dreams, right? But a resilient person would ask themselves, what did I learn from this? What could I have done differently? How can I use this as a stepping stone to something even better?
Okay. So it's turning that failure into valuable information for their next thing.
Exactly. And there's truth to that idea that what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You know, when we face challenges and overcome them, we build resilience, we learn new skills, we become more confident in our ability to handle whatever comes our way.
Like leveling up our inner strength with each challenge.
Exactly, yeah.
But we don't have to do it alone, right? I mean, support systems are a big part of this too.
Absolutely. Having a strong support network is so crucial for building resilience. These are the people we can turn to for, you know, emotional support, practical advice, and a healthy dose of perspective when we're struggling.
Sometimes it feels like asking for help is a sign of weakness, but really it's the opposite, right? It takes a lot of courage to be vulnerable, to admit that you need support.
And I think that's where authenticity comes in. You know, letting go of that need to appear perfect and allowing ourselves to be seen for who we are, imperfections and all.
And that authenticity can create deeper, more meaningful connections, right?
Exactly. When we're authentic, we invite others to be authentic with us. And that just creates this space for genuine connection and support.
A friend in need is a friend indeed, and all that.
Exactly.
But sometimes, even with a great support system, we need a little extra boost to get those creative juices flowing. So let's talk about creativity.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I feel like it's essential for problem solving, innovation, and personal growth.
It is. And it's often seen as something that only artistic people have.
Right.
But the truth is, we all have creative potential. It's just a matter of, like, tapping into it.
So how do we do that? How do we unlock that potential that's in all of us?
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is cultivate curiosity. You know, instead of approaching the world with this sense of, I already know everything, try asking questions, explore new ideas, look for connections between things that seem unrelated.
It's like becoming a child again.
Exactly.
Seeing the world with fresh eyes and a sense of wonder.
Exactly. And another thing is playfulness. Don't be afraid to experiment, try new things, even make mistakes.
Mistakes are just opportunities for learning.
Exactly. Right. It's all part of the process. And one of the best ways to foster creativity is to surround yourself with diverse perspectives.
Okay, yeah. Two heads are better than one. But it's more than just having different opinions, right?
It is, yeah. It's having different experiences, backgrounds, ways of thinking. When you're exposed to a variety of viewpoints, it challenges your assumptions, it expands your thinking, it sparks new ideas.
I remember I was reading a study, actually, about how just spending time in nature can boost creativity.
There's a lot of research on that.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like being in nature helps us to relax, de-stress, and tap into that more intuitive, creative state.
Maybe that's why so many people have those aha moments, you know,
Yeah.
in the shower or walking in the park.
Yeah.
It's like our minds need that space to wander.
Right, exactly. And speaking of space, another important part of creativity is giving ourselves time for rest and reflection.
It's so easy to neglect that.
It is.
In our, go, go, go culture, we're so focused on productivity that we forget to, give our minds and bodies that downtime to recharge.
Right. It's like we're running a marathon and never stopping to catch our breath.
Yeah.
And that can lead to burnout, exhaustion, and ultimately less creativity.
So it's not just about working harder, it's working smarter too.
Yes.
Giving ourselves permission to take those breaks and let those creative juices flow.
And sometimes those best ideas come when we're not even trying. It's like our subconscious is working on a problem in the background and then all of a sudden, boom,
yeah,
the solution appears.
Love those aha moments. It's like the universe is helping us.
I know.
Speaking of problem solving, let's talk about leadership.
Okay.
Another big topic.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, being the CEO or having some fancy title, is it?
No, leadership is about so much more than that. It's about inspiring others, influencing positive change, and creating a shared vision.
So stepping up and making a difference no matter what your role is.
Exactly. And one of the most important qualities of a good leader is leading by example.
Actions speak louder than words, right?
Right, exactly. People are much more likely to follow someone who walks the walk, not just talks the talk. And another crucial quality is empathy.
Okay, yeah. Empathy. That's understanding and sharing the feelings of others.
Yes, exactly. So empathetic leaders are able to see things from other people's perspectives, understand their needs and concerns, and create an environment where everyone feels valued and supported.
Sounds like empathy is the secret to a really positive and productive work environment.
It's a big part of it. When people feel understood and supported, they're more likely to be engaged, motivated, and productive. And they're also more likely to trust their leader.
Yeah, trust is huge. It's the foundation for any strong relationship, I think, whether it's personal or professional.
Right.
And speaking of strong foundations, one of the sources you sent mentioned the importance of adaptability in leadership.
Right. Adaptability is being able to adjust to change, pivot when needed, and roll with the punches.
Right.
And in today's world, things are changing so quickly.
Yeah.
Adaptability is crucial for success. Leaders who are rigid and resistant to change, they're not going to be effective for very long.
Yeah, it's like trying to navigate a ship through a storm without adjusting your sails. You're going to crash.
Exactly, yeah. A good analogy. Adaptable leaders can take in new information, make decisions quickly, and guide their team through uncertainty with confidence. and with resilience.
Which brings us back to resilience.
It does, yeah.
It's a theme that keeps coming up in our conversation. And, one of the sources you sent introduced this really fascinating idea, the growth mindset, which seems to be closely tied to resilience.
It is.
Can you tell us a little more about that?
So the growth mindset, a concept developed by psychologist Carol Dweck, is the belief that our abilities and intelligence aren't fixed.
Okay.
They can be developed through effort, learning, and perseverance.
So instead of saying, I'm not good at math, someone with a growth mindset would say, I'm not good at math yet.
Exactly. That little shift in language makes a huge difference. It opens up the possibility for improvement and encourages that love of learning.
Yeah.
And it's so powerful because a growth mindset fosters resilience because it allows us to see setbacks as temporary, and failures as opportunities to learn and improve.
It's what doesn't kill you makes you stronger all over again.
Exactly.
But it's not just about individual growth, though. It also affects our relationships, our collaborations.
Of course, yeah. People with a growth mindset are more open to feedback. They appreciate those different perspectives, and they can approach conflict in a more constructive way. They really see the value in learning from other people and working together towards a common goal.
It creates a much more positive and supportive environment.
Yes.
Both personally and professionally.
It does.
And, as we think about all these parts of personal growth, it's also important to remember that sense of balance.
Right.
Especially when it comes to ambition and well-being.
That's such a good point. We live in a culture that just glorifies hustle and achievement, like at all costs. But true success isn't just those external accomplishments. It's about how we feel on the inside, too,
So finding that sweet spot where ambition fuels our growth, but it doesn't come at the expense of our health and our happiness.
Exactly. And that requires us to be mindful of our limits.
Yeah.
Prioritize self-care and recognize when we just need to rest and recharge.
Rest and recharge. Music to my ears. But how do you actually prioritize self-care when things get so busy?
Well, it starts with recognizing that self-care isn't selfish. It's essential. It's like, they say on the airplane, put your own oxygen mask on first before assisting others.
Right.
When we take care of ourselves, we're so much more equipped to show up for the people and the things that are important to us.
I like that analogy. I also like how you framed it as essential, not selfish.
Yeah.
It's a whole mindset shift.
Exactly. And one of the simplest yet most powerful forms of self-care is gratitude.
Gratitude. I always thought of that as just a nice feeling.
Right.
How does it actually benefit our well-being?
Gratitude is like a superpower.
Okay.
It shifts our focus from what we're lacking to what we have. And it helps us appreciate all the good things in our lives, no matter how small they may seem. And research has actually shown that practicing gratitude has tons of benefits. Improved mental and physical health, stronger relationships, greater life satisfaction.
Wow. I mean, those are some serious benefits. So gratitude is more than just a warm and fuzzy feeling. It's an essential part of a happier and healthier life.
It really is. And the best part is, it's a skill that we can cultivate.
Okay.
With practice.
Yeah.
There are so many simple ways to incorporate gratitude into your everyday life.
Can you give us some examples? I'm all about those practical tips.
Sure. So one of my favorite practices is keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, just take a couple of minutes to write down 3 things you're thankful for. It doesn't matter how big or small they are. It could be as simple as, a delicious cup of coffee, a sunny day, a kind word from a friend.
Okay, I like that. It's like training your brain to notice those good things rather than just letting them pass you by.
Exactly. And, another really powerful practice is expressing that gratitude to others. Take the time to thank the people in your life who make a difference, whether it's a friend, family member, a coworker, or even, the barista who makes your coffee.
Right, those little acts of kindness can really go a long way. It's a win-win.
Exactly. And as we cultivate this sense of gratitude, we start to see the world in a more positive way. We become more resilient, more compassionate, more appreciative of the simple joys in life.
It sounds like gratitude really is a key ingredient for a happy and fulfilling life.
I wouldn't say it's the only ingredient, but it's a big one for sure.
All this talk about gratitude and well-being, it's making me think about the bigger picture of personal growth.
Yeah.
It's such a multifaceted thing, isn't it?
It is.
With all these different paths and possibilities.
It is. And what's so fascinating is that while there's no one-size-fits-all approach to personal growth, there are certain principles and practices that consistently show up as being essential.
Yeah, like self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity, leadership, a growth mindset, well-being. Those are all things that we've touched on, even in just this first part of our deep dive.
Exactly. And all of those things, they work together. They create this holistic framework for growth and transformation.
It's like a beautiful dance,
It is.
where each step informs the next. But even with all this, I'm sure there's still so much more to discover. What other treasures are waiting for us in the next part of our deep dive?
As we kind of dig deeper into personal growth, there's this concept that often comes up alongside ambition, and that's purpose. And, while ambition can be a really powerful driver, it can also, it can lead us astray if we don't have a clear sense of purpose.
It's like having a powerful engine but no map.
Exactly, yeah.
You might end up going really fast, but in the wrong direction. So how do we define purpose?
Right.
And how does it relate to all these other personal growth elements we've been talking about?
Oh, yeah. Purpose is one of those things that's kind of hard to pin down,
Yeah.
But I think about it as the intersection of your values,
Mm-hmm.
your passions, and the impact you want to have on the world.
Okay.
It's that deep why behind what you do.
So it's not just about achieving goals just to achieve them. It's about doing things that are actually meaningful to you.
Exactly. And when you're living with purpose, it fuels your motivation, it gives you resilience when things get tough, and it helps you make decisions that are, truly aligned with who you are.
One of the sources you sent talked about purpose being like a compass.
Oh yeah, I love that analogy.
Yeah.
It really captures the essence of it, Just like a compass can guide you through unfamiliar territory.
Mm-hmm.
Your purpose can guide you through all the twists and turns of life.
Yeah. We were talking earlier about, about resilience. Does having that strong sense of purpose actually make us more resilient?
I think so, definitely. When you know why you're doing something,
Mm-hmm.
you're more likely to persevere through those setbacks and challenges that are going to inevitably come up. You don't give up as easily,
Yeah.
Because you have something bigger that you're working toward.
It's like find your why and you'll find your how.
Exactly.
When you're connected to that purpose, you can find more creative solutions.
Hmm.
You can overcome obstacles that might have seemed impossible before.
Exactly, yeah. It gives you that push to keep going.
That inner drive.
Yeah, like an internal cheerleader.
Yeah.
Reminding you of why you started in the first place.
Ooh, I love that image. An inner cheerleader, much better than that inner critic we all have.
So much better, yeah.
But I think it's also important to acknowledge that finding your purpose isn't always easy.
No, it's not.
It's a journey, right?
It is a journey, for sure.
Yeah.
It involves exploration, self-discovery, and even some, trial and error.
Okay, that's good to hear. 'Cause
Yeah.
sometimes I think there's that pressure, like you're supposed to have it all figured out already.
Right.
But really it's an ongoing process.
It is. It's not like you just wake up one day and you have this big epiphany about your purpose,
There.
It's about paying attention
Yeah.
to what brings you joy, what you're drawn to, what kind of impact you want to make.
You mentioned joy. Does that mean our purpose always has to feel joyful?
Right.
What about those times when pursuing your purpose is hard work?
Yeah.
It's challenging, maybe even uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's a great point. And it's definitely a balancing act. Your purpose should align with your values and your passions, but that doesn't mean it's always going to be, easy or comfortable.
Right. Nothing worth having comes easy.
Yeah. Exactly. And that's where those things we were talking about earlier, like, resilience, grit, that growth mindset, all of that comes in.
It's all connected.
It is.
It's like we're weaving a tapestry and all these threads strengthen the whole design.
I love that. Yeah. You can't really isolate any one of these elements from the others.
Mm-hmm.
They all work together to create a more, holistic and fulfilling life.
Okay. So let's say someone's feeling lost, unfulfilled, they're trying to figure out their purpose. Where do they even start?
Well, I think a good starting point is to think about your values.
Okay.
What's most important to you? What do you stand for? What kind of impact do you want to make on the world?
Like an inventory of your inner compass.
Exactly.
Figuring out which direction is the right one for you.
Exactly. And once you have a better understanding of your values, then you can start to look at different paths,
Mm-hmm.
that align with those values.
One of the sources you sent talked about the importance of our careers aligning with our values.
Yeah, that's so important because when your work is aligned with your values, it's not just a job anymore. It becomes a source of purpose and fulfillment.
It's like your work becomes an extension of you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can lead to greater job satisfaction, increased motivation,
Yeah.
and a sense of, actually making a difference.
Right. It's do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life.
Exactly.
Of course, it's not always that simple.
No, it's not.
But I think when you're aligned with your purpose, work feels less like a chore and more like, a meaningful contribution.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's not just about careers either. It's about aligning your whole life with your values.
Okay.
Making choices in your relationships, in your hobbies, in how you spend your time that are consistent with what's most important to you.
So it's about, creating a life that feels authentic,
Yeah.
aligned with your true self. That sounds great, but also a little daunting.
It can be.
What if what if you're not sure what your values are? Or you're struggling to actually live by them?
Well, I think it's important to remember that, this is a journey, not a destination.
Mm-hmm.
There are going to be times when we feel lost, confused, even discouraged.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Like when you're hiking through a forest and you lose the trail.
Yeah.
You might feel frustrated or even scared, but you eventually find your way back.
Exactly. And sometimes those detours lead you to some pretty amazing discoveries.
So it's about trusting the journey, even when you don't know where it's going to lead.
And being kind to yourself along the way.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
It's easy to be so hard on ourselves.
It is. Especially when you feel like you're not making progress as fast as you should be,
Mm-hmm.
But it's really about embracing the whole journey, imperfections and all,
Yeah.
celebrating the small victories along the way.
And remembering that personal growth is a lifelong process,
It is.
not a destination.
Yeah.
Always going to be new challenges, new lessons to learn.
Absolutely, yeah.
You mentioned gratitude earlier,
I did.
and it seems like that's kind of a thread that runs through all of this.
It really does. Because when we focus on what we're grateful for,
Mm.
it changes our perspective from a place of lack to a place of abundance.
It's like I used to complain that I had no shoes until I met a man who had no feet.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
It's putting things in perspective, appreciating what we have,
Mm-hmm.
rather than dwelling on what we don't have. And gratitude has so many benefits.
Mm.
Reduces stress, improves sleep, boosts your immune system, even strengthens your relationships.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, those are some serious benefits. Gratitude really is more than just a nice feeling.
It is. It's a powerful tool for personal growth.
And the best part is that it's something we can actually practice.
We can.
Can you give us some examples of how to do that?
Sure. So one simple practice is to keep a gratitude journal. Just every day, write down 3 things you're thankful for, no matter how small they are.
Mm-hmm.
It could be a cup of tea, a sunset, a kind word from a friend.
I like that. It's like training your brain to look for the good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And another thing is to express gratitude to others. Take the time to thank the people in your life who make a difference.
Okay.
Whether it's, a friend, a family member, a coworker, or even just that barista who makes your coffee.
Right. Those small acts of kindness can really go a long way. It's a win-win.
Exactly. And as you practice gratitude more and more, you start to see the world through this different lens. You become more resilient, more compassionate, more appreciative of those simple things in life.
So gratitude really is a key ingredient for a happy and fulfilling life.
Yeah. I wouldn't say it's the only ingredient, but it definitely plays a huge role.
All this talk about gratitude and purpose is making me think about this, the big picture of personal growth again.
Yeah.
It's a multifaceted journey with so many different possibilities.
And what's so fascinating is that while there's no one right way to approach personal growth,
Mm-hmm.
there are certain things that keep coming up as being essential.
Yeah, like all the things we've talked about: self-awareness, communication, resilience, creativity, leadership, a growth mindset, well-being, purpose, all these things we've touched on.
Exactly. And they work together to create that, holistic framework for growth and transformation.
It really is like a dance. Each step leads to the next. But even with all this, I'm sure there's so much more to explore. So what other treasures await us in the final part of our deep dive? Okay, so as we wrap up this deep dive into personal growth, I gotta say, I'm feeling pretty energized.
Yeah, me too.
We've covered so much, from self-awareness and communication, all the way to purpose, resilience, even the power of gratitude. But where do we go from here? How do we actually take all this awesome information and apply it to our lives?
That is the million-dollar question.
Yeah.
And that's where I think a lot of people, they get tripped up.
Mm.
You know, we can have all the knowledge in the world, but if we don't put it into practice, what's the point? It's just information.
So it's not enough to just listen to this deep dive and be like, oh, that's interesting. We got to actually do something with it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest things that holds people back is what I call analysis paralysis. You know,
Oh, yeah.
they overthink everything, they get overwhelmed by all the choices, and then they end up doing nothing.
Oh, I've been there. It's like you're standing at the bottom of a mountain and you're just so intimidated by the climb that you never even take that first step.
Exactly, yeah. Perfect analogy. And the key is to just break it down, you know, into those smaller, more manageable steps.
Okay.
So instead of trying to change your entire life overnight,
Right.
just focus on one small thing you can do today.
Okay, so it's about those little steps,
Yeah.
those tiny actions
Exactly.
that eventually add up to big change.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
A journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Okay, that makes me feel better. So we're taking action, we're embracing those little steps, but what about when we hit those inevitable roadblocks?
Right.
You know, those setbacks. How do we stay motivated and keep going when things get tough?
Well, that's where resilience comes in.
Mhm.
And remember, resilience isn't about being perfect or never messing up. It's about having the courage to get back up when you fall down.
And you mentioned before that having a strong purpose can really help with that resilience.
It does, yeah.
When we know why we're doing something,
Mm-hmm.
we're more likely to keep going even when it's hard.
For sure. And another thing that can really help is cultivating that growth mindset. You know,
Oh, yeah.
remember, that's the belief that our abilities and intelligence aren't set in stone. They can be developed.
So instead of seeing those setbacks as failures, we can see them as learning opportunities.
Exactly. It's about shifting our thinking from, I can't do this, to, I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it.
It really is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
It is, yeah. But it's also about, you know, how we interact with other people.
Okay, yeah.
Our personal growth isn't meant to be a solo mission. It's about connection, building relationships that are supportive and learning from each other.
And we talked about vulnerability being a key part of building those strong connections.
It is, yeah. It's about letting people see the real you, even though it can be scary, right?
It can be really scary.
But the payoff is so worth it. When we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, we can create much deeper, more authentic connections with other people.
Yeah, it's like to love is to risk getting hurt. But without that risk, you miss out on the really beautiful, deep stuff.
Absolutely. And those connections, you know, they're essential for our well-being. They give us support and love and a sense of belonging, which is so important for navigating everything that life throws at us.
And speaking of navigating life's ups and downs, one of the sources you sent talked about the importance of embracing diversity.
Diversity is so important for growth. It exposes us to all these new ideas and cultures, ways of thinking, and that can challenge our assumptions, spark our creativity, really just broaden our whole understanding of the world.
It's like we're adding more colors to our palette,
Exactly.
creating this richer, more vibrant tapestry.
And remember, diversity isn't just about like race or ethnicity or gender. It's about all sorts of differences in perspective, background, experience.
So it's about being open to people who are different from us, people who can challenge us, help us to see things in new ways.
Exactly. And one of the best ways to embrace diversity is through experimentation.
Experimentation. Okay, that sounds a little scary. What do you mean by that?
I mean, being willing to step outside of that comfort zone, trying new things, seeing what happens, approaching life with curiosity, you know, and a willingness to learn from your mistakes.
So it's about saying yes more.
Yeah.
Embracing the unknown.
Exactly.
Seeing where it takes you.
And sometimes those unexpected detours lead us to some really cool discoveries.
Not all those who wander are lost.
I love that. And as you continue on this journey of personal growth, just remember to be kind to yourself.
That is so important. It's so easy to be hard on yourself, you know?
It is, especially when you feel like you're not progressing as fast as you should be. But it's really about embracing the whole journey, imperfections and all, and celebrating those little wins along the way.
Yeah, and remembering that personal growth is a lifelong process.
It is.
It's not about reaching some final destination.
Exactly.
Well, this has been an amazing deep dive.
It has.
I feel so inspired to keep learning and keep growing.
Me too.
Any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
It's just this. Remember, you have the power to create a life that is meaningful and fulfilling for you. It's a journey, not a race. So be patient, embrace the bumps in the road, and never stop exploring.
That's great. Thank you so much for sharing all your insights. It's been fantastic diving deep with you. It's been a pleasure.
And to all our listeners, thank you for joining us. Keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.